This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. I often say if I could just manage my time, I would probably be a millionaire. How many of us resolve to studying more, reading for pleasure more, exercising, networking more, through the use of a finely tuned and highly effective schedule of our time that addresses all our goals and aspirations? How many of us consistently struggle to make even those things on our to-do list that mean so much to us both personally and professionally happen? Do you ever stop to quantify the lost hours and resources that come with being poorly prepared for your workday? Having to double back for a missing document? Missing out on an important submission because of poor planning? And countless other missed opportunities. Overcommitting yourself because you struggle to set realistic goals that can be achieved within a certain time frame. Losing face or being embarrassed because your persistent late coming makes you appear irresponsible and disrespectful. Not to mention the constant anxiety and stress that accompanies a life of habitually poor time management. Time management is a stumbling block for way too many of us. Our guest, industrial psychologist Karen Robertson, says is a multifaceted issue. Tonight she shares some potentially life-changing fundamentals on how to better manage our time. Just to begin, why do so many of us struggle with managing our time?
Now, Metsu, when I got the call from you to say that we are going to talk about time management, and I put down the phone, I thought to myself, my goodness, Karen, why did you say yes? Where are you going to find the time to do this? And I was at that time in the midst of a huge project. I had several other projects that I was also working on. It was deadlines. My husband and I and all 5 kids caught this year's terrible flu. And then 2 of the triplet babies decided in that same time it's time for teething. And then in between work and doctor's visits and kids' extramurals, I had to find the time to prepare now and talk on time management, which I found quite ironic. I had all of these things going on, and the more I tried to do, the less I got done. And the less I could organize my thoughts. And it's exactly like you say, my situation is not unique. We all struggle with that and have experienced that absolute frustration of having too few hours in our day to go to bed exhausted, just to have to get up 4 or 5 hours later and start everything all over again. So we are just trying to hold on and survive with all the demands that life puts on us. So you say, why do we struggle? When I had to now prepare and have all of these demands on me, I decided to sit down and reflect on the working of the brain again. And understanding how our brain works and the limitations actually helped me to understand how I can change things just to be more effective.
So change is possible. Help us in the same way you helped yourself. How do we go about being better managers of our time? What should we know?
Just a few things that I did in this instance, for example, is that the first thing I did was to sit down and prioritize. So I prioritized prioritizing. And that's something we hear. We've heard it so often. But it's really important to first prioritize, because why? Prioritizing is one of the brain's most energy intensive tasks or processes. So if I don't do that first thing, I may not have time later, or the energy to do it later. So starting with prioritizing, I already set myself up.
The old saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. Holds very true. So the most of your energy you should dedicate it to prioritizing and planning.
Because prioritizing takes most energy from our brains.
So what exactly is the problem? Why do even seasoned consultants such as yourself struggle to manage their time?
Now, Metsu, when we look at the brain, problem solving and decision making relies heavily on a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. So the outer layer of the brain is called the cortex. That is that grey, curly stuff that you see on pictures of the brain. And the prefrontal cortex is just behind the forehead. And that makes up about 4 or 5% of the entire brain. I think people also compare it to if the prefrontal cortex is a square meter, the rest of the brain is the size of the Milky Way. Wow. Or if you compare it like the prefrontal cortex is the change that you've got currently in your pocket, while the cortex, or the rest of the brain rather, is the size of the US economy. So this is really a very small part, but a very important part of our brain, because without this part, you will not be able to set goals, you won't be able to plan, you won't be able to make decisions, to exercise impulse control, to memorize, even to think creatively. But they also call the prefrontal cortex the Goldilocks of the brain. You know, with Goldilocks and the three bears, everything had to be just right for her. The porridge, the chair, the bed. And in the prefrontal cortex, for it to function properly, there are a lot of things that need to be right. And that is where the limitations comes in, and those limitations make it difficult for us to manage our time.
What are these limitations?
The first limitation of the prefrontal cortex is that while it's only a small percentage of the brain, that 4 to 5% of the entire brain, it takes up a lot of the glucose and the oxygen levels of the brain. So we have a limited bucket of resources available for problem solving and decision making. Once we engaged in problem solving or decision making or impulse control, we have much less energy left for the next task. So we have to manage this limited amount of resources. And the minute we understand the working of the brain, instead of fighting it, we can work with it. The first thing that I, for example, did when I felt so overwhelmed with all of the demands and you phoned and say, come and talk about time management, is I sat down and I prioritized. I prioritized prioritizing, and this is something that we've all heard. You need to prioritize. Why? We just spoke about that energy that the prefrontal cortex uses of the brain, but prioritizing is one of the most energy-hungry processes of the brain.
So the prefrontal cortex needs for you to have the energy for you to start with the planning. What other limitations are there?
The prefrontal cortex can only hold 4 to 5 thoughts or concepts or ideas at the same time. So the next thing I did now was to clear some space, to get rid of some thoughts.
How did you do that?
By listing. Okay. Just listing all the projects that I have to do. Or I was, driving in the car. You found yourself driving in the car. You have to think about preparing for this meeting to get yourself in the right place, but then other thoughts comes up, and then it diverts you. So what I did is then I tried to focus on a project, but then I kept on thinking, oh, Nametsu wants this, and what am I going to tell them? And in the end, I don't get to anything. So the minutes then when a thought comes to mind, I will write it down, or I will record it. I got into the habit of just sending myself a WhatsApp voicemail, so that later on I can refer to that again, because then I'm clearing the space.
Without you having to keep it in the back of your mind so you don't forget.
Yeah, because now I use my brain, not for storage, but now I use my brain to interact with the information. And it's amazing how that can actually make quite a huge difference, because now I can focus and allow those 4 to 5, my prefrontal cortex not to get so crowded. Another thing that goes with that is that I can look at scheduling the energy intensive or the task that takes more energy when my brain is fresh and alert, my mind is fresh and alert. And that is for me normally by 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's different for all of us. So then I would do the task that takes a lot of energy for me, that's reviewing a new proposal, maybe writing a new proposal. I would do then like 10 o'clock in the morning, while capturing data I will do later in the afternoon when I'm more tired. So the brain is like any other muscle in our body. When it's tired, it doesn't function optimally, but once I've rested it, then I can think more efficiently again. So I need that rest and I need that downtime. So that is where I would schedule tasks in blocks of the day according to my energy levels.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Thank you for staying with us. Along with banks and the stock market, the insurance industry is also said to positively contribute to economic growth. At the most basic level, you can imagine families that are allowed to maintain their quality of life after the passing of a breadwinner. Young professionals that can easily recover financially from the setback of losing a first car. Or employees that receive the best healthcare and financial support after suddenly becoming disabled. The insurance industry allows for the support of all such individuals, reducing the burden on government assistance structures. At the higher level, we have had the likes of visiting UK consultant Jeff Heisman on the show, pointing out the potential for Botswana with its rule of law, location, sound fiscal management and more to become an exporter of financial services and products and a major regional player, diversifying the economy. We are now joined by another visiting professional, John Lomberg, from International Insurance Company and also South Africa's largest short-term insurer, Santam. He describes the way in which the insurance industry can further help government and aid economic growth by building resilient and sustainable cities.
There's a big responsibility that insurance companies have to begin to partner with key material stakeholders around risks, because the risk presents in various cities, municipalities and other jurisdictions. So it just makes sense for cities, for insurance companies rather, because we manage risk, that we begin to partner with those who are impacted by risk. Now we know city officials are impacted by risks and vulnerable communities are impacted by risks. It's for that reason that a call to action needs to be issued to insurance companies to find ways in which the risk that presents can be mitigated, thereby reducing the exposure of those risks on those communities or on cities, whilst at the same time generating commercial value to the insurance companies themselves. So there is shared value to be had if insurance companies with city officials work together to reduce their risk exposure. For the cities themselves, they begin to tap into the the vast resources of risk management expertise of insurance companies. Sadly, though, insurance companies have themselves also not been forthcoming in sharing with government those expertise. But now, if they do that, they will enable risk management to be much more prioritized when key strategic municipal infrastructure projects are decided upon. They will ensure that city officials do proper risk transfer to insurance companies, and also reducing, of course, or improving rather, the insurability and the bankability of those key infrastructure projects. For insurance companies, on the other hand, they will be able to ensure those assets much more easily because they know they comply with insurance risks. Also, insurance companies gain data, because remember, in every jurisdiction, you will know areas of vulnerability and hazards. So that data is given into insurance companies, and that informs their risk modeling again. So there is shared value, again, benefits for both if we follow this approach.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues and yet another installation of our series, Own Your Day, Own Your Life, in which we are taught the healthy choices to make at different points throughout the day. We present this segment with the full understanding that a healthy workforce is a productive one that places less strain on the country's resources. That health does indeed equate to wealth for Botswana. Professor Kieran Bhagat has discussed the right foods to eat and exercise programs to follow in past programs. Tonight, we ask for the truth about supplements, as we are consistently bombarded about the miraculous nutritional benefits of one product or another. It has been kombucha, moringa, and others, and nowadays it is probiotics, multivitamins, and more. So what is the verdict? Should we spend our hard-earned money on supplements? And if so, why?
That's a good question, and because there are lots of supplements on the market and people are always wondering what should take. Supplements are generally exactly that. They should supplement a healthy diet. They are not a replacement for a healthy diet. People assume that because they're taking a supplement, they don't need to consume vegetables. And the best place to take your minerals and your vegetables and the things that we talked about are natural foods. But it's true in today's day and age, we don't have access to 5 vegetables a day, a rainbow of colors in terms of your fruit and vegetables, because we're rushed. And so there is always a need for supplementation, simply because when we measure certain vitamin levels in the body, they are deficient. One of the major issues that we have, for example, is that we now have what I call junk light, which is literally this light here, this light, this neon lights are junk light. Just like we have junk food, there is junk light. And this light is actually very unhealthy for us. It actually ages us. It's a blue light. It keeps us awake. The blueness of your digital media, your cell phones, your iPads, so the light is very bad in terms of, and we're sitting in an office all day. So we're not absorbing natural, healthy sunlight. So there's not enough vitamin D in the system. So vitamin D is a big problem in Botswana because people spend life indoors. And we're often finding vitamin D levels are very low, and vitamin D D stands for depression, if you like. We know that it's important for bones, but people who are low in vitamin D are tired, lethargic, they're at risk of cancer, they're at risk of diabetes, and this is an increasing issue because of the manner in which we live. The other one that we find is deficient is magnesium. Magnesium is found in unprocessed foods. It's found in your seeds and your nuts and your vegetables, and often these are processed. The husk of the rice is taken off, you know, the cover of the peanut is taken off, and often this is where the magnesium or the minerals are. And many people are magnesium deficient. When we measure magnesium, it's the commonest mineral deficiency in this country is magnesium deficiency. And magnesium, in the old days, we all know about an Epsom bath. An Epsom bath is the bath you use, the salts you put in the bath to relax your body because it contains magnesium. It relaxes the muscles. So when people get cramp, they get insomnia, they feel fatigue, it likely is magnesium deficiency, which you can get by eating nuts. You know, manoko you can take a little bit of peanuts or cashew nuts, just a small amount of almonds that contains magnesium and zinc. But we don't do that, and so we are magnesium deficient, and we eat a lot of processed foods in which those healthy ingredients have been taken out. So there are certain things that we should supplement, and I always say take a good multivitamin, multimineral supplement, because you cannot make up for all the things that we cannot eat when we recommend them. And then make sure that your doctor or your practitioner or your hospital measures certain things. If, for example, you are a woman and you may have your natural menstrual cycles are heavy, you're losing iron. You know, there is a condition which we're all familiar with, which we call in medicine pica, where women actually actively hunt out clay to eat that soil. It's because the body is deficient in iron and actually is craving food or soil that's high in iron. And that's telling you that you're iron deficient, calcium deficiency. So make sure that you have the appropriate tests. And you know, there are certain faiths and also certain lifestyles that are currently encouraged, for example, to become a vegetarian or a vegan, you know, and there's some people that don't eat certain types of foods. So make sure if you're restricting your diet that you're making sure that the nutrients, the vitamins in your system are appropriate and not too low, because they may make you feel tired even though you're trying to eat a healthy, balanced diet.
That brings us to the end of our program. But before we say our goodbyes, we thought it fitting to remind you of the word of caution given by consumer watchdogs Kate Harriman last week regarding Black Friday specials, seeing that the excitement has already begun to build. Advising you once again to remain skeptical, keep a level head, and stick to your budget during the festive season spending.
The reason they're offering you specials is because they want lots of consumers to come in and buy things from them. And this is part of the run up to Christmas. It's leading into what's happening in Christmas, but are you always getting the bargain you think? Now, if you're going to get rid of stock, presumably you're going to get rid of stock that you've already had in, and it's stock that perhaps has been sitting there for a long time. So it might not necessarily be the latest model that you're buying. It might be stock that's been sitting there for a year. It might be stock that they want to get rid of before they get the new stock in, ready for Christmas. So I'm not saying it's not going to be a bargain, but it's a question really is it a bargain that you want, and is it a bargain for you? So if you go out and buy something that you don't really need and you regret it later because you bought a TV, for example, with a brand that you don't know, it might not land to be the bargain that you think it's going to be.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?